All right, hello crew. Welcome to our social studies lesson for the week. Today we are going to be talking about what happened after the Civil War, right? So we talked a little bit with our battles and we decided that the Confederacy lost. They surrendered at Appomattox Courthouse to the Union. And now President Lincoln has the task of putting our country back together. So that's kind of what we're going to be discussing today. So you got two social studies papers in your bag. The first one looks like this. And it says reconstruction questions. Below are some of the difficult questions faced by Americans after the Civil War. For each question, come up with a well-formulated response, be specific, and use complete sentences. I'm going to read through the questions, and then I want you guys just to pause the video and think, how would you solve these problems, okay? So our first one is about formerly enslaved people. So slaves are now free. So what are they going to do with all these people? What rights should be extended to formerly enslaved people? What laws should be passed to guarantee these rights? As of right now, slaves had no rights, so they're free. So what rights are we going to give them, and how are we going to make sure these rights are actually taken care of? Number two, should formerly enslaved people be given land to own and farm? If so, where are you going to get this land from? And then former rebels. So former rebels are the people who were in the Confederacy, who were fighting the Union. What are we going to do with these people? Number one, how will Southerners be admitted back into the Union? Number two, what should happen to former Confederate leaders? Number three, how will you create order in the South? Who should be in charge of the local governments? So the Confederacy Army was in charge of everything, and we can't have them in charge anymore. So what are we going to do? Who's going to be in charge? And number four, how will you rebuild the South? So most of the war took place in the South, so there's damage. How are we going to fix that? How will we get the money to repair roads, buildings, and towns? All right, so I want you to go ahead and pause the video right here and fill in those questions. All right, once you have those all filled in, we're going to go on to the next section. So go ahead and turn your page over, and it should say Reconstruction Solutions. So these are what the government decided to do with those problems. We are going to fill in this bullet list. I want to make sure I give you guys the right information. Reconstruction. All right, so we have this page here, and as you can see, some of the spots are blank. So we're going to be filling those in. So Black Americans are citizens. That's what they decided. And to do this, they passed the Civil Rights Act of 1886, or 1866, the Civil Rights Act of 1866, and they also passed the 14th Amendment, which we will discuss later. And then the next one says, formerly enslaved people can work for pay on plantations. So they can keep their job doing what they were doing, but now you have to pay them for it. Sharecropping, a system where landowners would provide housing, tools, and seed, and laborers would work the land for a small wage. And then number three, black men can vote. And under that, in this blank spot, you're going to write 15th Amendment. The 15th Amendment stated that all citizens, all male citizens, could vote no matter their race. And then number four, many primary and secondary schools were built for Black Americans. And then it has the bullet point, segregated schools. So next to it, you need to write that Black and white kids went to different schools. And then we're going to go down here to former rebels and the South. Southern leaders were not tried for treason. So Jefferson Davis, he was the president of the Confederacy. He was imprisoned for 2 years, but he was never tried. And then Lee and the other generals, they weren't punished. They were just sent home. Because Lincoln didn't want to make things worse than they already were. He just wanted everybody to just go back to normal. Number two, taxes raised funds to rebuild the South. So for buildings, they fixed the schools, the houses, and the hospitals. Schools, houses, and hospitals. And for transportation, they fixed the railroads and the roads, and they charged people taxes to fix it. Number three, the South was divided into 5 zones and assigned generals to act as temporary government. This was from the Reconstruction Acts. So on this one, Reconstruction Acts. And then Southern states were admitted back into the Union after they rewrote their state constitutions to include ratification of the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment said that Black Americans were citizens. So they had to agree to that. They had to say, yes, I agree to this amendment. And they had to agree that Black men could vote. So that's what they had to do. Ratify the 14th Amendment, agree that Black men could vote. All right, and then this is just some interesting stuff if you want to read that. All right, the next page that should be in your bag looks like this. It says Civil War Reflection. So this is actually your assessment for the Civil War. So I'm going to read the questions, but you need to fill it in by yourself. Number 1, list the top 3 things you learned about the Civil War. Tell me 3 things that you learned that you didn't know before. Number 2, select one of those 3 things from the list and explain more about it. Number 3, tell me one cause of the Civil War. And it needs to be a sentence. Don't just write slavery. Write a sentence. Number 4, describe how you would feel if you had to fight in the Civil War. What would you consider worth fighting for? Again, complete sentences. Number 5, what is your opinion of Abraham Lincoln? Support your opinion with at least 2 reasons. Did you like him? Tell me 2 reasons why. Do you not like him? Tell me 2 reasons why. Number 6, explain one effect of the Civil War. So what's something that happened because of the Civil War, right? Number 7, what questions do you still have about the Civil War? Write 3 questions that you still have. And then number 8, what do you think the United States would be like today if the Civil War never happened? Explain. All right, so you guys need to fill this in. Both of these pages are due back on Friday, June 4th. All of your work needs to be turned in by Friday this week. All right, thanks guys.